Hi, let's start some math now. So you should have tried page 59. This is page 59, and you should have tried this problem. But before we go through maybe some ways that you solved it, let's talk about first these three questions that I have here on the screen. The first question is, what is the problem about? So let's read it and see if we can just figure out what it's about. Perez has 205 seeds. He plants 137 seeds. How many does he have left? Well, the problem's obviously about seeds. Now it says, what are we trying to find out? Well, that's typically the question. How many seeds does he have left? And I'm going to put a little squiggly line under left because that's a key that we probably need to take away or subtract in this problem. And then when it says what information is important, what he started with is important and what he has left is important. So whenever we do add and subtract, when we add, we take two parts and we find the total. And when we subtract, we start with the total and we take away one of the parts to figure out what the other part is. So in this case, the 205 seeds is the total. So we'll list that first. And since he plants 137 of them, that's the part that he planted. So we need to figure out the part he has left. So maybe one way you could have done this is draw a picture. So you could have drawn a picture of what 205 looks like. Since we start with the total, we don't need to build both numbers. We just need to build the big number. And then we're going to take away this 137. So we can't take away 7 ones because we only have 5 ones. And we actually don't have a 10 to break apart. So we have to take this 100 and we have to break it into 10 tens. So then we still have 205 here because we have 100 here, another 100 here, and then 205 here. But because I broke that second 100 up, now I can take 10 of those and make 10 ones. And I can take away this 37 that I have. So I'm going to take the 5 I started with plus the 2 here. So that leaves me with 8 ones left. Then it says take away 3 tens. So I'm going to take away these 3 tens, which leaves me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tens left. And then it says take away 100. So I'm going to take away this 100 and I have no hundreds left. So I have 68 seeds left. But before I do that, let's check and see if our answer is right. The easiest way to check to see if our answer is right is to take our two parts and add them together like in an addition problem. And then that will help me figure out if I got my total. So I take 137 plus 205, make sure I line up the ones, add them, regroup my 10 with the tens, and I got 342. So I've done something wrong here. So we need to think about this and think, uh-oh, I didn't add my two parts like I said I would. I added my total and my part. So I need to try it again, and I need to add 137 plus my answer over here, which is my other part. So I'm going to add those together. 15, regroup my 1. Then I have 10, regroup my 100. Now, oops, made another mistake. 1 plus 1 is 2. Now I can see that I got what I started with. So now that makes a lot more sense. So I took a picture, I broke it apart, and then I subtracted it, but then I took my two parts and I added them together to check my answer. Okay, let's check another way in case you tried it another way. Let's check another way. So let me erase all of this. So we're still doing that same subtraction problem where we start with our whole of 205 and I take away one of my parts, which is 137, and I'm trying to figure out my other part. So I can take the number 200 apart into how many hundreds, how many tens, and how many ones I have. And then do the same thing with my part that I'm taking away and subtract it. Then you can say, okay, I don't have enough ones to subtract. Now, a lot of third graders will say, oh, 7 subtract 5 is 2, but we're not taking 7, or we're not taking 5 from 7. We only have 5 and we have to take 7 away. So we can't subtract from the bottom up. We always have to subtract from the top down. So I don't have enough ones and I don't have any tens. So I've got to go over and make this 100, and that will give me 100 tens or 10 tens. Then I'm going to take one of those tens, which should leave me only 9 tens, which is 90, and I add my 10 I just moved, and that made 15. So I move my 100 over to the tens, and then I took one of those tens and moved them to the ones. Now I can subtract. 15 subtract 7 is 8, 90 subtract 30 is 60, and 100 subtract 100 is 0. So when I put them back together, that's 68. Now it's a little bit confusing when you do it this way because we have these plus signs right here. And we're like, why do we have plus signs if we're going to subtract? Well, because our number, we had to get what we started with, we have to add our hundreds, tens, and ones. And add our hundreds, tens, and ones down here. So we have to put them together to get the numbers we started with. And then we're actually taking the top from the bottom and subtracting that. So that's why we have to do it that way. And then we add them, we just put them back together in the end. Okay, there's one more way that you might have done it. And this is probably the way that your mom would know to do it the best. And that's our regrouping way. So if I go back to my picture and I say, okay, I started with 205. Which is what I start with up here. And then I say, okay, I don't have enough ones to take away. So I'm going to break this 100 into 10 tens. Okay, so I need to show that I only have 100 left, but now I have 10 tens. Then I'm going to take one of those tens and make 10 ones. So then I'm going to take one of these tens. I only have 9 tens left, but now I have 15 ones. Then I can take away 7 ones, and that leaves me 8 ones. I can take away 3 tens, and that leaves me 6 tens, and take away 100, and that leaves me 0 hundreds. So there's a few different ways to do it. Whichever way you choose to do it, I would always take my part I started with and add it to the part that I figured out to make sure that you get what you started with. No matter what you do, I would do that. Okay, so let's go on and look at the next one. So our next page shows us that, let's see, let me fix this so you can see the whole thing. So I have that red line, but just ignore that little dotted line. It's just part of what the camera is doing. So it says you can use a number line, which is one of the ways we didn't talk about. So it said, okay, you start at the small number 137, you add your 3 up to make it 140, then add 60 up to go to your next 100, and then add 5 to go to 205, which is what you started with. Then when you put those together, that gives you 68. Do you see that? So we added 3 to get to 140, added 60 to get to 200, added 5 to get to 205. You put those together and you get 68. So that's another way you could do it. I actually really like that way. I kind of forgot that you can do it that way. Okay, I'm trying to move my camera over a little bit. There we go. Okay, so now we are on the back of page 59, so you should be on page 60. And we're going to do this page. So it says, start with 137. What is the next 10? So if we add the next 10, we have to add 3 ones right here. Oh, it says what is the next 10 though? So the next 10 would be 140. And then since the next 10 is 140, we have to add 3. So they've already wrote that 3 there for us. Then it says how many 10s do you add to get from 140 to 200? So our next 100 is 200, and we'd have to add to 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, 200. So we would have to add 6 10s to get to 200. Okay, and then it says, so how many 10s do we need? We need to add 6 10s, which if we're going to leave it as a 6, we need to write 6 10s, or you could write the number 60. Now what would you add to get from 200 to 205? We would need to add 5 1s. So we would need 5 1s. Now it says write the addition equation that you would need. Well, we'd have to add 6 10s, which is 60, plus 3 1s, plus 5 1s, which would leave 68. So he needs 68. So then it says, how would you add on to find the difference of 195? Well, this one's kind of tricky, but it's just a little bit of what we did. So we're first going to add up to our next 100, which would be 5. That gives us 200. Then we only need to add 2 to get what we started with, which was 202. So we only had to add 5 and add 2 to get from 195 to 202. So the answer would be 7. So that's what you should write on number 5. Go ahead and pause the video if you need a minute to write that down. Okay, let's go on. So now you have a few more problems to do, so you can have your mom help you and work on page 61, and then you also have a green sheet on page 62 and 63 that will give you more practice. So go ahead and do those pages, and then during the live, if you have questions, let me know.